we have Trust in the Shorts, which is our short channel, and we have this Trust in the Force, our long form channel. And on our over on our short form channel, I've been seeing a lot of people talking about, the Bad Batch, they're done, they're not good anymore. I'm still loving it in
I
season
don't know what
3.
they're talking about.
I cannot understand what if you're not loving season 3 of the Bad Batch, what is going on? Because this is some of the best Disney Star Wars storytelling that I have found. Every time somebody tries to tell me, "Oh, Disney ruined Star Wars," the Bad Batch, Andor, Star Wars Visions, these are all things that I point to and say. Even the last season of Clone Wars came out during the Disney era. I say these are the great things about Star Wars. Mando, a lot of people
Yeah.
say that Mandalorian season 3 fell off. I still liked it, but you
I
got
still liked
at
it. I still liked
least
it a lot. And I point to, because without Disney buying Star Wars, we wouldn't get things like The Mandalorian, The Bad Batch. We wouldn't have gotten this final season of the Clone Wars, which a lot of that stuff was, relegated to novels. I mean, a lot of the Siege of Mandalore stuff was in the Ahsoka novel written by E.K. Johnston, and as far as we knew, that was all we were going to get of that. Besides from an interview with Dave Filoni that happened like a while ago. But
yeah.
yeah. So
So
getting
I'm
that has been great. So, but yeah, Bad Batch, full marks, full
Yes,
marks,
yes.
full
All
marks.
right, cool. So he is Tim Costello of Weber State. I am Vactor. We are here to talk Bad Batch season 3. This episode was entitled "The Return," um, as we saw a return to the Outpost, which was an episode from season 2, episode 12, The Outpost, where
Great
Crosshair
episode.
had
Great episode.
that might be my favorite episode besides the pilot of Bad Batch. I think the Outpost is up there for my favorite. So
It's such the
Tim,
culmination of Crosshair's arc up to that point.
yes,
And so we not only return to this outpost, but we have Crosshair's return to the fold of the Bad Batch. Because he came back in full force in this episode. He is in his old uniform. He's, back with them, even though they don't trust him. So that was another return that we got this week.
yeah, there's some great stuff here, and man, Crosshair might end up being my favorite character over the course of this all 3 seasons, because he's had the most, I think, growth, the most
Yeah.
character arc and depth. And he started off as someone that I think we are supposed to not like when the first
Sure.
half of the season happens. And as we progress and we've gotten to know more and more, and now he's kind of back in our good graces, I think Crosshair is going to end up being one of our favorites in this whole season. I want to ask you, Tim, what are you thinking about Crosshair at this point? Now that he's come back to the light side, what do you think?
I really liked seeing him kind of back, but there wasn't any. It wasn't like oh, Crosshair's back, yay! Let's just all welcome him back with open arms. No, that he did stuff, and like he betrayed them. He like he went to the Empire. He did stuff, but on the alternate side of that, Crosshair was quick to remind Hunter that but I tried to warn you, and you didn't listen to me. And
That's a
so
great point.
there was a line in the end of this episode. I know I'm gonna butcher it, but it basically like they're like they finally worked things out, and they did work things out for the most part at the end of this episode. So yeah, I really like everything with Crosshair. Crosshair, yeah, I totally agree. It's probably going to be one of our favorite characters from this show, and a show that has Wrecker in it. So
Yeah. Which, like you said, you've pointed out on previous episodes, he's just that kind uncle that you have, that good,
yeah,
fun-loving
yeah,
uncle.
and this was also brought home again because he still had Crosshair's old uniform and he held on to it, like because he always hoped that maybe he would come back, even
Yes.
though everybody else in the squad was like, no, he's done. Like Crosshair is just like he's lost to us, but Wrecker never gave up hope, and so I love Wrecker's optimism. So
Yeah.
he also is
That's
one of my favorites in this one too.
Yeah, I love Wrecker, and shout out to D. Bradley Baker for every nuanced performance that he's been putting in. I think he's kind of like Andy Serkis to me. Like, I want to give him some type of lifetime achievement award for all
Yeah,
of the work that he's done over the years. But individualizing the clones was something, even going back to Clone Wars,
yeah,
where it was like, man, I care about the clones now. I never cared about the clones in the live action stuff because they didn't really get much to do. But once we got to see them in the animated form, it was fantastic, and I care about them. Actually, even going back to that, the Tartakovsky 2D Clone Wars before they
Yeah.
had the 3D Clone Wars, I was like, man, these clones are cool. They're doing stuff that's really fun and interesting. And that one, it didn't necessarily give them the personalities, but it made me say, like, oh, they're doing, there's a lot of action and the way that they fight, the way that they can
Mhm.
form up. And even going back to that Republic Commando game, which I talked about in a previous episode, it's like, man, the Bad Batch would be a great video game if they
Oh
did
yeah.
some type of Republic Commando successor and made it Bad Batch, where you could control each guy has, okay, Crosshair's the sniper, Wrecker's like the brute, Hunter's the leader. Everyone has their own specific pros and cons and things. That would be such a fun video game. But man, I love the Bad Batch. I love the family aspect of,
Yeah.
like you were saying, with that fun uncle. It's like the positivity and the optimism. And there's sometimes in everybody's family, there's like the one that kind of goes off on their own and you don't talk to them maybe for a while and then they come back and you're like, oh, okay, we're family, like the redemption of them in your own life. And I'm feeling that with Crosshair.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I'm really liking.
And Star Wars has always been a family story.
Yeah, that's
At
right.
its heart, like, yeah, we've got these cool like spaceships and laser swords and all these and cool force techniques and stuff, but at a heart, it's all about family, and that's been true in the
Yeah.
Skywalker saga. That's been true in the Mandalorian, in Ahsoka,
Oh,
and in the Bad Batch, all across Star Wars. As long as you've got that family element, you're gonna have a great Star Wars story.
yeah. I 100% agree with you. Also, something that makes a great Star Wars story and just a great story in general. And that's why I love having you on here, Tim, to talk because you are, I think, an expert in writing, literature, just the printed word, the spoken word and the printed
Hmm.
word. And I love analyzing the background nuances of Bad Batch. And you and I both enjoy Screen Crutches recaps that they do, and they
Yeah.
pointed out something that I thought was very interesting, the light side and the dark side almost, where Omega's
Mm,
going from the cold blue tones and the industrial type of thing where she was in the prisons to now warm, engaging, organic materials that she's wearing. All of those things, the wooden tables that they have, all of those things are like the dichotomy between those two things. And that's not something that they point out in the show. It's just in
no.
the background and it's just adding to the layers of the world. So I really I enjoy noticing those type of details
Yeah,
that they've put
and
in here.
going back to those kinds of details is, and it's the same with Crosshair because he was also in that cold blue empirical setting when he was with the Empire, and now that he's back with the Bad Batch, it's more of that warm. It's the warm family. It's the warm environment. And so, yeah, that's always center stage. And yeah, it's not pointed out, but my opinion is if they didn't want us to notice, they wouldn't put it in there. Everything in a film or in a piece of work is like nothing's by accident. It's not like say, oh well, this is cool. Let's just do this. I mean that's why they do it, but it's all intentional. Every piece of storytelling is intentional. They want us to notice these things. They want us to see that this contrast that we're seeing here with Crosshair and Echo, and I'll like going back to that family dynamic. I really liked kind of the warm jibing family dynamic. When Echo comes back, he's just like aren't you gonna get Crosshairs? Aren't you gonna give me a hug? It's like, well, it depends what kind of information you got. Or Omega when she says to Crosshair, like, I'm 2 years older than you, right? Which I
That
loved.
was
I loved.
yes,
I
I
love that.
love
I love
that.
that.
And she called him little brother.
Yeah.
So and again, going back to the optimistic side, going back to Omega, she still wants to rescue all the clones. She still wants to go back and she's like, Hunter, this means something to me. I have to do this. And you just love Omega. It's just such an endearing part of her
Yeah.
character that she wants to save everybody. She wants no man left behind. and
Right. She's
very
almost
much that Steve Rogers jumping on a
yeah,
grenade.
not only that, but very much a mother hen kind of character.
Yeah,
And it
that's right.
reminded me a lot of Katara in Avatar: The Last
Ooh,
Airbender, because I've been watching a lot
yes,
of that
yes,
lately.
yes.
Almost done with it. But yeah. So very much like that, where she feels like she has to take care of everybody. There was that
Yeah.
episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Painted Lady, where she like put on a persona just so she could take care of more people. And I feel like that's kind of where Omega's at. Like, she wants to save as many people as she can. Like
Yeah.
like nobody is unimportant. And I think Crosshair kind of shares that similar mentality, even though he goes about it in a different way, because he's seen firsthand how the Empire views clones and that they're
Mm,
expendable.
yes.
Just from that episode that you mentioned, the Outpost. That was such a pivotal episode for him, where he got to see that, oh wow, the Empire really doesn't care about me. Like, they don't care that I'm gonna die. They don't care that I'm gonna live. So they don't care either way. So he's on board with Omega. It's just getting his other brothers to kind of, you know, make sense of his presence there.
Yeah. And to that point, I love the Hunter Crosshair confrontation in this when they're in the snow and Hunter
Mm-hmm.
ends up shoving him. That was just a really
Right.
good family dynamic between those two. And I've been waiting for that, from the moment that we saw Crosshair come out of the ship and he looked
Yeah.
at Wrecker and Hunter, it was like, okay, there's something brewing in the background. So is let's get all of our emotions out now so that we can all come back together and be a team again. So I
Yeah.
really like
So
that
I have a
moment.
question for you.
Yeah.
So you act when they left that ship, and when they got out of that ship and they had that like standoff at the end of the episode last week. Did you feel that that was properly paid off this week, or do you feel like you wanted something more?
I wanted a little bit more seeing the actual what happened after they cut last week,
Right.
where they were just staring at each other. Did Crosshair go back in his ship? Okay, they're not going to talk to me. Or did he go join them? And then Wrecker embraced him like he did in this episode. That was great when Wrecker went up there, and I was like, I know he's going to hug both of them. I know he's not going to just hug Hunter. When he gave them both that embrace, that was fantastic. But I did want a little bit more out of that moment because yeah, it was a great cliffhanger for last week,
Sure.
but when we jumped to this week, it was like, hey, wait a minute, what happened? Where was the resolution of that cliffhanger? So that was something that I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of
I kind of
from
agree
that
with you. I
side.
would have liked to see
But
a little bit more of that, but I feel like what we got this week, kind of what was paid off, I think, really well. Not only the confrontation between Hunter and Crosshair in the snow, where they like basically is like, because they're the like none of like, and that's what I love about these kind of philosophical arguments between characters, is none of them are like, they're not wrong. Like, it's just
right.
how they see it. And like I said, with Hunter saying, you betrayed us, you went to the Empire. And then he said, well, then Crosshair's like, well, I warned you that they were coming after Omega's was in Tantus because of you. Obviously said that to sting him, because when family members, we say things to hurt them because we know we can, and that kind of thing. And one thing I loved about this episode is, this whole show, Crosshair's mantra, throughout the whole show, has been good soldiers follow orders. And one reason why the Outpost is so poignant for his character is because that's where he learned, okay, maybe blindly following orders isn't the thing. And I
Mm,
love at the end of this episode, that Hunter and Crosshair confronted each other about that specific line, and about that specific ideal. That was really, really cool. Like,
yeah.
we didn't know what we were doing,
Yes.
and kind of thing. And I really, really enjoyed the breakdown of that particular uh, uh, line that has been
Yeah.
Crosshair's kind of thing for the entire series.
Right. And what's crazy, I didn't even think about it. It actually goes back to the first episode of which, like I said, the pilot episode is probably one of my favorites of this whole
Mhm.
thing. But when they're going after Kanan, and one of the first lines Crosshair says is, "Good soldiers follow orders." So that progression, that through line, is from the first episode all the way to this last final season. So I really
Not
like
only
that.
the first episode of the show, but also going back to the Clone Wars, because
That's right. That's right.
when the chips started flaring up, that's what one, I don't remember which clone it was. I think it might have been Fives, where he said, "Good soldiers follow orders," and so
Yes.
that
Yep.
has come back to be kind of Crosshair's kind of thing that he's kind of carried throughout throughout the series.
Yeah. So I really like that. When you can have a payoff of multiple seasons having
Yeah,
an evolution and an arc, it's just really fun to see that, and
it's
really
what makes
satisfying.
it's what makes this long form storytelling very satisfying, as opposed to a film. You can do it in a movie. You have a line at the beginning of a film and then it pays off at the end. But what the great thing about a series is that it pays off. You could do a line throughout. You could do a line here, do a line there, do a line there, and then you could pay it off beautifully, like the Bad Batch has done with this line. That's just good storytelling. That's the beauty of television.
100%. And the beauty of podcasting is that I have a fantastic co host, Tim Costello, here every week joining me talking about the Bad Batch. And I hope that you will join us every week as well. If you had something that you found interesting in this episode, let us know in the comments down below. We're always interested to hear your take and your thoughts. If you didn't like this episode, tell us why. If you don't like the Bad Batch, tell us why. We're always interested to hear your thoughts. But man, I think this is going to be a fantastic feather in Disney and in Star Wars cap when it's all said and done. So we will
Absolutely.
continue our talk here each and every week talking about the Bad Batch, and we would be honored if you would join us.